You are now entering the Mysterious Historians podcast. Welcome to the Middle Ages, often referred to as the Dark Ages, a 1,000-year time period between the collapse of the Roman Empire and the Renaissance. Was it full of flat earthers covered in mud being drawn and quartered while dragons danced with knights? Or was it far more than the snobby Renaissancians would like us to believe? Today I sit down with Professor Margaret Andrew Higgenbothem to discuss the truth behind the rumors. But before we begin, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Towel Bleach. Are your towels always covered in blood? I know mine are. Whether it's murder or menses, I use Towel Bleach for all my towel bleaching needs. Towel Bleach. That's TWELBLCH. And now, on to our show. Professor Higgenbothem, welcome to my show. Since you're not with your college presently, I'm not sure if I should mention its name.
Yes, thank you for having me today. It's such a delight when I find others who are interested in historical things such as me. It's not a secret where I teach. I am just on sabbatical, but some universities you might be familiar with are Ozarks Technical Community College.
Oh.
I like to make sure that everyone has access to history.
Why history?
I think it's because I did not have a lot of friends growing up, and so I was seeking knowledge and companionship in other places.
In the past.
Yes, in the past, exactly. And as I was young, people like you and I now were on, are you familiar with public broadcasting system?
Yes.
PBS was my best friend. There were many absolutely hilarious historians. They kept me really, really entertained and babysat for many, many hours.
Yes.
And when I say many, I mean many hours. I was a bit neglected, so.
I've never met a historian with a happy child.
Oh, no, there's a reason we're historians. Like they say comedians are funny because they're hurt. Well.
Yes, historians are historians because the world forgot them.
Yeah, we want no future, just the past.
Now, why the Middle Ages? Is it because people were so mistreated in that time period?
Yes, and it's fascinating to me the skill that was involved in their daily life, and yet the stupidity as well. I also find it fascinating the difference in hierarchy between the feudal or peasant system versus royalty. I am aware, had I been born in a different time, I most definitely would have been a peasant. Therefore, I suppose somewhere in my child brain, in thinking of being born again, next lives, past lives, perhaps I'm connected to that through the past or the future.
I admire the humility. Most people would assume they would be someone important in the past.
I'm well aware. Yeah, no. Birth by blood, I'm sure I would have been poor. And then just as far as physical attractiveness, based on how I'm received by the world, I think, probably no.
You're also a natural redhead, so you
Yes.
probably would have been drowned at birth for being a witch.
Possible. It's possible. Or drowned at any time during my life.
So walk me through a typical day of your poor peasant life. You wake up in the morning, you move the pigs aside. What do you do?
To be perfectly honest, even their sleeping habits were quite different from ours, and some people don't know this. I don't know who you are. I'm a bit of a night owl, and so I'm like, there's leftover tinges of my medieval life in the past.
Oh.
They slept in, what would you call that, shifts almost, all together, but they would work, of course, from sun up till sundown and have dinner, bathe. Then they would sleep for a few hours, get up around midnight, 1 in the morning, have some social time, perhaps, sit around drinking mead, whatever they could afford. Then take another small nap before getting up to harvest, work, work in the dairy, the women, all the things that happen. So, yes, they slept in shifts, which I find fascinating. And as a night owl, I'm sure you and I both could remember a lot of those late night commercials.
Yes, they were our friends when no one else would play with us.
Who was that just hilarious man that always had the turkeys in the oven?
Gilbert Godfrey?
Perhaps.
So you wake up in the middle of the night, peer through the one window in your home, and the Middle Ages is presented as very dangerous. So you have these bands of wandering thieves, as you will. What do you think the kidnapping or baby napping statistics were?
Well, they could have been higher, but so many babies died. So not as high as people think because there weren't so many to kidnap.
You can't kidnap something that's dead.
There, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, the rovers and things in the woods, that's why they didn't like to travel far from home.
Yes.
Everything was on their, we would call it a homestead, right? So they had all of their animals, which produced their food. They might go into town, but I think they did try to avoid the woods. Also, I'm sure you're aware, a lot of the woods were owned by royalty and therefore not accessible, or legally anyway, to the commoner. So if they were caught perhaps poaching, dead, killed, murdered instantly, those were their boundaries, rules.
Answer the age-old question. What's the difference between a serf and a peasant?
Yes, so a serf would be definitely indebted to their landowner, often some sort of royalty, or was gifted that position by family and royalty. Therefore, for their life in servitude to the people who owned the land they live on. A peasant could earn freedom. There was a peasants' rebellion at one point. It didn't go well.
They never do.
There is still a king.
Yeah.
For whatever he's worth. Camilla, what a dolt.
Stupid peasants.
Yes, but anyway, I digress. What was your question?
The difference between a serf and a servant, or a peasant, I guess.
Yes, so a peasant could earn their own. I'm looking at my notes here. I apologize, but I did want to get the feudal system versus the manor system. So the peasants were born at the very bottom. They're the
yes.
dirt of the bucket.
The
correct?
scum of the
Yes,
earth.
the silt in the water. So during the Middle Ages, they were then tied to that land that they worked on, so that they owed labor and taxes to the lords in exchange for being able to live on the land.
Now, a lot of people are confused about what to call the Middle Ages. It's 1,000-year time period.
Is it the Middle Ages? Is it the Dark Ages? Is it medieval times? All of the above.
Medieval torture devices have been greatly exaggerated. The Iron Maiden is a myth created in the 19th century, though it is far more compelling than the old noose. What is your favorite over-exaggerated torture device? It could exist, but was definitely not used as commonly as they would have us believe.
Judas's pyramid is one a lot of people aren't familiar with.
Oh, please explain.
Unfortunately, it was a wood or stone pyramid shape that they would tie a peasant or a criminal to the top of with their arms in the air. And then the point of the pyramid would be put in the rectum of the accused, and their body weight would eventually slide down the pyramid. Now, you're aware of a pyramid shape. It gets wider. So, technically speaking, the person would eventually be split into pieces. I suppose 4, if I'm just thinking about logistically how they would slide down a pyramid.
The amount of time I want to spend thinking about a man being sliced through the butthole by a pyramid is not a lot of time.
But you would be one of few, as there are museums.
Any other fictional favorites or medieval myths of torture?
Do you know what the pear is?
No.
It is a device that is inserted into one's mouth, and it has a crank. They're often very beautiful, if I may. I know that is dark, but they were intricately carved, okay? They were heated sometimes, so that it would burn as soon as it enters your mouth. Don't tell a lie! Don't tell a lie! But they could also be cranked open so as to basically open your skull.
So they're just widening your mouth until your face shatters.
Not to be rude, but ladies will understand the spatula thing that expands inside of your womanhood.
The speculum?
Yeah, it's a head speculum, you brilliant woman. Yes. Yes, yes.
I was worried for a moment. How many spatulas have you put up your vagina?
5.
Oh, we do have 5.
We do. Historians, people assume we're boring. No.
Get us a spatula, who knows?
See, you'll see.
Speaking of women's sexuality, let's talk medieval churches.
You know, the church was beliefs were very important to people of all standings, correct? It was also tied into social, if you will. You know, if you were considered to be a witch or not following God's laws, no matter what happens behind closed doors publicly, of course, you had to serve the right one. Of course, we know there's Protestant versus Catholicism, things of that nature. So it was very tied into their daily lives. And God forbid, no pun intended, you choose the wrong one. You would be ostracized. Yes. So part of the lore of the old witch living in the field all alone, you know, those were women who were shunned by God and society.
No.
Yes, very sad. I feel like had I grown old in those times, I might have been one of those women in a cabin with all of the herbs hanging upside down, and no one wants to help or feed me or love me until they're sick and need help, and then they'll come and bring me tea.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a pretty bleak opinion of what your life would be like in the Middle Ages. Why the fascination? It's almost as if you're torturing yourself with a pyramid of hypotheticals up your rectum.
Honestly, no one's ever asked me that question. Why am I? You know, I suppose I see parallels between who I might have been then and who I have been today. I know in front of you, you see this very well put together woman in a pink blazer.
Well,
But
nothing.
Inside, there's been a lot of struggle in Margaret's life. So I think I identify.
Yes.
Perhaps.
Moving on, there is a perception of everyone in the Middle Ages being filthy.
Not true, but I do understand where it comes from. Throwing the baby out with the bath water, we know all of these things, and that part is true. You know, water wasn't plentiful. They had to bring it to their homes, so they did all bathe in the same water. The animals did live inside and poop and pee-pees with them, but
I suppose the standard of cleanliness was also different.
there also people didn't, I think, have the same olfactory offenses we do today.
No, the senses must have been dulled.
You know, royals, of course, did have some semblance of a toilet that was higher in the castle, but there were at least 3 instances of rebels crawling up through the canal to the toilet and impaling a royal through their bathroom times.
Oh,
so honestly, peasants had it best in that regard.
No one's gonna poke you through the butt if you're pooping over a creek.
I mean, I would think not unless you have some randy fish. That was inappropriate.
Speaking of cleanliness, have you ever been in a locker room and everyone's gaily snapping towels at each other's buttocks? And you're ashamed of your towel that's yellowed from various pleasures. Towel bleach will save you from shame and allow you to participate in all locker room shenanigans. Use code MYSTERIOUSSTAIN to get 20% off all towel bleach products.
Let's do a little role play.
Love it.
I am a time traveler.
Okay.
I've wandered into your plot of land.
Thank you.
And
Dangerous, by the way, without knowing me, but continue.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it plays out.
We'll see.
Here we go. And action. Hello, young maiden.
What are you doing on my land?
Is that the
I
accent?
think it is not. I don't think we speak quite how they do anymore. So I'm going to make it modern, so that more like a poor Bridgerton.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Take 2.
Take 2.
Hello, good fellow or ma'am.
Good stranger, how might I find you on my land, and why hast thou come?
I'm just wandering through town, and I was wondering if I could get a bowl of stew and maybe a cup of mead.
My family is so poor that a bowl of stew feeds 6 of us and our cow, my good sir.
I'm so sorry, my apologies. May I help milk your cow to pay my way?
Will you drink it? See, I don't want to break out of character, but I don't think that would be an offer that a stranger might that a stranger might.
What might a stranger offer?
They would probably ask for some meat or some broth or something, but I don't think that a peasant would allow that. There is a danger bringing a stranger in, and also as a stranger, I think you might not be quite as friendly. Not sure what to expect. Maybe we might have disease. That's something we haven't talked about, the plague and how it travels. And, people think it's rats. It is to some extent, but also just human fleas.
The fleas
the
on rats
lice and
yes.
lice, body lice and things. So as a traveler, we would probably both be frightened of each other. Should we start again?
Oh, yes, and I promise not to give you malaria.
That's a mosquito, but okay.
All right, so let's start again. Here we go. Hello, I'm from the town one town over, and I heard your sheep are the fairest around.
I'm sorry, that made me giggle because I was worried you wanted to copulate with our sheep.
That's hilarious.
You did say they were fair.
Oh, well, I just meant that I'd come to admire them.
I understand. I'm sorry, my mind is such a gutter.
Well, it's natural to assume people in small towns.
There definitely were sheep fuckers around at the time, and now I'm sure I don't know it.
No, I think the art of men making love to things that they shouldn't make love to has endured throughout history.
It is an art.
Now, I don't think we're having much success with role playing.
I'm so sorry.
No. It's we learn by doing.
Yes.
A question for you is, what would I just learned recently that many women not only tended to their own farms but had occupations too.
Indeed.
What occupation do you think you would do?
Most women definitely ran a dairy within their own home because there was not refrigeration. So some women who had more to give, of course, would sell off their goods to help the family. There's also a lot of women did lace. Do you know what lace is?
I live in the world, so yes.
I think it's not as common these days. I think the children don't really know lace.
Wedding dresses are covered in lace.
Isn't it all made by CGI?
Possibly, but I think people still know what it is.
Yes, it's a very fine skill. Perhaps now that we have the internet and everything, of course you can see all of these people doing these things, but many, many little sticks. Many little sticks with threads, and they would go click, click, click. It's a clanking. I don't know if I sound like wood. They're wooden sticks. They clank together very fast to create this lace. Now, that is something that is very time-consuming, was taught to the young women as well. And the grandmothers, the mothers, and the daughters might sell off little tablecloths, little doilies to go under the pot of milk.
I thought about this. What would I be? And I obviously wouldn't be one of those whorish milkmaids out in the field showing my elbows to the workmen.
I can tell. I smell your class from here. Of course not.
But maybe an indoor milkwoman making cheeses
Very
and
respected.
butters.
Cremes.
Soft hands from working with so much dairy.
Yes, I would imagine you're right. I had never thought of that. Much better than being out in the field or building the hedgerows, which also is a very, very fine skill, but mostly by men, I suppose.
Now, speaking of hedgerows, you have a 12-hour-long YouTube video in which you construct a hedgerow from nothing.
It does take a long time. That is a 12-hour video, and I did edit.
Really?
Indeed. Edited several hours of footage that just pained me to leave on, as the industry says, the cutting room floor.
Well, there was that entire period where you severed your finger.
Yes, and I felt like that was exciting and should be left in.
Now, I know you've mentioned several times that you're single and unloved. But let's discuss romance. I know that the idea of courtly love is
Courtly love was fun and dirty, yes.
For those listening who don't know what courtly love, it's sort of inspired by the whole Camelot of it all, forbidden love.
Forbidden love, especially with a royal, arranged marriages. Courtly love was also lots of drama. I would equate that with the soap opera of the times. The paparazzi, the People magazines, the magazines of the time.
Unrequited love.
Often, or inappropriate.
Unappropriate, yes. The love that is forbidden, a love that involves no actual sexual intercourse, but love between...
So they said.
So
publicly.
yes.
Yes.
We know Guinevere and Lancelot, really. They courted each other.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about a poor person's love life. Who would they marry? What would they marry?
Interesting, because it could have been forced by a family. There were still relationships forged within communities that would help one another. Your family has 12 pigs and mine has 6 chickens. Let's marry our kids and
breed
have a farm.
Chicken pigs.
God, wouldn't that be adorable?
Oh, it would be delicious.
Oh, delicious too, yes. So some people did fall in love for love, but I think that was not considered a necessity of the times. There was a lot of pregnancy. Did you know that if a woman, how would I say this appropriately? I don't know what networks you're going to be on, but if a woman was taken advantage of sexually, it perhaps a rape.
Oh.
If she were to get pregnant, yes, the men of the community would assume she enjoyed it. That was the belief of the time. I'm sorry, my blood is already boiling just discussing it again. It's something I speak about in my conferences often, because women, okay, if she did not get pregnant and didn't like it, she was said to be a liar and a whore. So there really was no opportunity for a woman to go, oh, I was taken advantage of, and they've just made up a story for it.
So nothing's changed.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that the truth? But those who did choose to be together for love, I really do believe that they must have had a magical life.
Or a terrible life,
Or
as
a
they would have
terrible
been shunned by
life.
society and not. Let's discuss guilds.
Yes.
Yes, not every. People think there was no middle class, but the guild members would define a middle class.
Yes, that's what we would think of them as today. They had a very specific skill. These associations, they protected the interests of artisans, regulated their professions. It gave a sense of community. One might say a union. Today we have unions.
Yes.
So
guild sounds much fancier and
well,
more
because
historic.
everything was fancier back then. Even though everything was so filthy, it was so fancy filthy. The language, the way they spoke.
The vowels.
And the guilds for artisans. You may have worked with stone. Wow. You may have worked with stained glass. You may have been building castles.
Wouldn't that be working with stone?
That's what we all think. But on the inside, there was the white. So you know how we all think of castles as very gray.
Yes.
Stone covered.
Yes.
Not the case. They were covered with a lime wash. They were very white and bright, especially if they had money. So different colors were taken from fruits and things like that. And the walls were decorated. They were quite bright, beautiful places. Now, a peasant's life, not quite the same. But the peasants were employed in those skills. And that was often how that middle class, as you pronounced it, existed.
How would one become a member? I mean, I'm guessing...
Such a long journey. I'm glad you asked. I'm afraid that some people are bored by it, but you've opened the can. Here we come. You have to be an apprentice. Yes. Oftentimes young men, specifically like a blacksmith, maybe what we would consider sold off or given away to another person. But in their minds, it was for their future.
The amount of times I've sold off a child for their future is, I don't have enough fingers.
Oh, my God. You have a sense of humor that is
do.
sparking my eyeballs up.
I would never have children.
Well, good for you. I haven't been able to at this point, and I think that ship has sailed.
Probably.
But there's always adoption and dogs. So let's move on. The blacksmiths. So, for example, let's say 8. They might start helping a blacksmith getting burned. All the things you have to learn to fear as a child when you're young, And then, but they're watching how the business is run, what the skills are. And by the time they're near the end of their life, 24, 5, they have begun an excellent profession. And they will then rob another family of another child and train them up in those skills. It just continues on.
Yeah, children these days, all they know how to do is make TikTok videos.
TikTok videos, which I guess takes time, but is it labor?
Let's get to our rapid fire question category.
Okay. I hope I'm ready.
Favorite king?
Honestly, it's going to sound lame, but it is true, Henry VIII. I mean, so much to unpack.
Interesting.
His injuries, the stench of him, how many wives and women he had, how he changed the entire, world's view on religion, which poo-poo on that, believe what you want, everyone should, but that's not how things were then,
Oh, I pictured you a King John.
For what reason?
The treachery.
The treachery is exciting.
Being the youngest and the least loved by their parents.
But see, that feels like truth to what I've already experienced. Why would I not want to fantasize?
Yes.
And sometimes I do. 2 princes disappeared at one point. What happened? Some people believe they were alive and well and paid off. That's somewhat, what's the word I'm looking for? Parallel to things happening today.
Where are the 2 princes that disappeared today?
They sing, little miss, can't do wrong.
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
They were
the band.
Doro.
Yes. Well, that's not nowadays. That's the mid-90s.
Correct. See, they've gone by the wayside.
Yeah, you're aware of what time period we're in, right?
Correct. Yes, but you said, how is it? There's those two. Am I wrong in saying those 2 princes have disappeared?
Yes, you're right. The one-hit wonder, 2 princes.
Well, they had one other song. I can't think of it. Is something about love.
Yeah.
Okay. But I like to fantasize. Correct?
Yes.
Yes. I like to think about, what if I was at the joust where Henry fell from his horse? And was obviously very worried, but there were trouble already. Would I have just gone to him in his bedchamber and just let it end with a pillow?
Oh.
Because he humiliated himself. He's gone down in history as such a yuck, right? He smelled. His injuries smelled, and these young women were being forced to sleep with him as if he were going to give them a child. Now, King George is fascinating. He went crazy.
Which one?
There's so many.
But that's after the Middle Ages.
Indeed, yes.
After the Middle Ages.
I'm not into that.
I should have clarified. Favorite king of the Middle Ages.
I'm going to have to say Henry.
You love those zany kings.
I do. I had a grandfather who was just evil. Just a terrible, terrible man on every level you could think. Just grumpy, no core values, whatever. That man lived until he was 97 years old. Just on hatred, I always said.
This was supposed to be rapid fire, and I completely lost that.
I have a way of slowing everything down.
Oh, don't we all? All right, here we go. Favorite food of the Middle Ages?
Poor man's bone broth.
Favorite drink?
Mead.
Favorite song?
Oh, lightly we go wandering through the fields a day.
Favorite textile?
Lime-washed stone walls.
Well, that's not a textile. That's a wall.
Glass? Maybe I don't know what a textile is.
Fabric.
Oh, indeed. Wool.
Oh,
wool.
Not many options for a peasant.
No, yes.
Favorite time of year?
Spring, of course.
Favorite medieval holiday?
The firecatchers breathe.
Favorite death?
I have so many. I think just sitting in the tower.
Favorite fairy tale?
Oh, yes, the pig and the wanderer.
Favorite way to deal with the mentally ill?
Put them in a home, but not near you. Usually that means the woods.
Oh, those crazy woods. Professor Margaret Andrew Higgenbothem, thank you so much for
This has
joining
been
me.
the highlight of my month.
Oh.
Thank you so much. I find your humor and your face very pleasant to be with.
Well, I try. Tell the people where they can find you.
I am not on social media.
Great.
However, I have my own website, Margaret Andrews Higgenbotham, historylover.org. You can contact me via email off of the direct website.
And you, dear listener, tune in to next episode where we explore the mystery that is history.
Thank you so much for listening. My guest today was Dana Powell. Dana, where could people see or hear you do more things?
I do have social media.
Oh, good job.
You can find me on Instagram at I am Dana Powell. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. Or you can catch me around town performing every once in a while, sometimes with Colleen.
Ooh, that's a promise.
And you can find The Mysterious Historian at Mysterious Historian 666 on YouTube and the.mysterious.historian on TikTok, and myself, Colleen, at Colleen Marie Smee on Instagram.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.